As we turn on the Game Boy Advance, the game starts with a very dramatic music. Screen shakes, Godzilla roars as we press start. Oh no, it's Godzilla. As we enter the selection screen, this reporter will present us with a bunch of different options. We get the story mode, versus mode, costume mode. Let's go for the story mode for now. We get to choose from a bunch of monsters. It's all the famous ones you would expect. There's Godzilla, there's Mothra, there's Rodan, there's Mechagodzilla, there's King Ghidorah, and there's also a Megalon. So this gives you an option of a more obscure monster. You can play the story basically with any of them. It doesn't have that much of an effect on the story, just some very minor dialogue changes. This reporter girl who greeted us earlier, well, she shows up again now and she is conveying us the story, what is going on, in basically the forms of short cutscenes with still images. We learned that her name is Konimatsu. She reports from the terrain on what is going on. The story is basically about some asteroid that appeared and apparently it's making all monsters go berserk. They were peaceful before, but now they're just doing damage and everything. The only monster that is a good monster is the one that you happen to choose. And that one is the one who is defending the Earth. At first we fight in a city. The surroundings are all destructible. You can even lift a building and throw it on the enemy. That's fun. You need to learn the controls since button combinations are needed to do special moves like Godzilla's atomic breath. But if I can do it, so can you. These combinations are not difficult. The second level is Frozen Arctic Base. Aren't you a bit cold wearing that? This time it's two monsters against the enemy. It's kinda funny how the second level is easier, because now there's two of you against one. Although you will have to cope with the slippery ice, so from the gameplay perspective it is an introduction of a different terrain. The ice level is kinda cool, although it has less destructible parts. Poor Megalon just gets ganged on by two monsters. The poor guy doesn't have a chance here. Alright, let's go to the next level. Wow, what's this? You're working as a miner now? That's some serious dedication for a reporter. Anyway, this time it's a 1v1 again. You fight Rodan in an underground mining colony. It's a cool setting, although it would be maybe more fitting to fight Megalon here, right? Since he's the one who actually digs underground. It seems obvious, but anyway, the game doesn't really care about any continuity and any realism, which is honestly a good thing, maybe. Godzilla is such a fictional concept that it would be silly to try to take it too seriously. You can lift a stalagmite here and throw it at the enemy, so that's pretty cool. That jumping Godzilla kick you do is really strong. I like how it's animated. It's a bit cartoonish the way the foot stands out. It's sort of like the whole game, but it really works. I like it. It has its own style and it runs with it. This time the fight takes place on a space colony. So as you can see, the settings in the game are very diverse, taking place all over the planet Earth and even on the other planets. This time the reporter really steals the spotlight with this spacesuit, which, well, emphasizes her features. I don't know, I guess those abs are the reason why she isn't cold in the snow. Anyway, this time it's a 2v2 on the space colony, Godzilla and Mothra in a classic Savior of Humanity alliance. This is also a cool setting. There's a bunch of space buildings that are there to be destroyed. Gameplay-wise, destroying buildings will power up that red line you can see in the corner. This is the special power bar. You basically need it to do special attacks. There's also a bunch of power-ups you can get, like there's one for the HP, there's one for the power meter, and there's even one funny one that sort of reverses your control. You better avoid that one, because it can be quite a bother. The next level is the moon level, and here Konimatsu wears this spacesuit that I suppose becomes the standard spacesuit of the future. Anyway, the moon level is where the game gets kinda challenging. It's you against 3 monsters, and there's very few destructible buildings, which means that you can't really fuel your power meter as much as before, meaning that if you were relying on your special powers before, now you're not going to be able to anymore. And the moon also features different gravity. So for example, if you try to do a jump kick, it's going to be all different because you will jump way higher and it's really hard to time it correctly. And it just seems less effective. It can be done, it just takes a bit of trial and error to get accustomed to this new scenery. Next we have this bonus scenario. Again, it's a city environment, only that this time you are the only monster here. A bunch of army planes will spam and they will go from left to right. And honestly, I don't know what you're supposed to do here. It seems that you get points if you don't get hurt, so I don't know, are you supposed to destroy them? Are you supposed to avoid them? I'm not sure, but points are useless anyway. I guess like you can brag about them on some forum or something, but they don't give you anything if you collect them, so there's little point to this level. However, it is a welcomed change of pace from the rest of the game, so I still like that they have this level. The rest two levels are just variations of Space Colony and the Arctic base. Ha! Look at that smile on Connie's face when she's reporting about the battle of monsters that will leave hundreds of people displaced from their homes. Even when caught by the snowstorm, her face still seems to express happiness. If she can find the courage to go on, so can you. No task, no goal is unreachable. Ah, here we are, finally, the final level. We can tell it's serious because Connie is now actually dressed like an actual reporter all of a sudden. The mysterious asteroid is finally here. Godzilla will soon go mad. Then, here we go. The final boss is Mecha Ghidorah. Wow. On the first try, you will probably try to hit him and nothing will happen. You will very likely die for the first time. But with some trial and error, you will very quickly find out that you're just supposed to hit the head first, and then the obvious glowing red light on Mecha King Ghidorah. The fight is actually quite exciting, even if I just explained it in a boring way. Because of the music and the fast-paced moving background in the back, it does give the fight some weight to it, so it's a pretty fun, cool fight. While it's simple, it works at the same time, so I can't complain about it. It's kind of odd that you fight Mecha King Ghidorah, especially if you play as Ghidorah, because Ghidorah is so much smaller. It's weird, but supposedly the reason is that it was originally supposed to be Biollante, but that was only changed at the last moment. So, you figure. After you defeat King Ghidorah, all is well. The monsters now no longer attack humans anymore. This time the reporter casually sits on a tank turret. Each monster has a different final scenario. Godzilla goes into the ocean as the sun sets. Classic Godzilla shot, beautiful. I like Mecha Godzilla's ending, it's kind of funny. Mecha Godzilla gets shut down for complete repair and maintenance. That's nice for him, I guess. The crew gets 2 weeks paid luxury vacation on an infant island. 2 weeks for saving the Earth? Looks like brutal working conditions haven't changed much in the future. And it's also kinda sad that Infant Island got commercialized with luxury resorts. I don't think Mothra would be very happy about that. Anyway, if that happened in the film, I'm sure she would go on a rampage, like usual. That's about it as far as the story goes. Basically, you have these 6 monsters and you can play through the campaign 6 times with every monster and you will get a different ending for every different monster. That's what you can do with it. But there's not much difference besides just playing as the different monster and having to learn how to play as one. But besides that, you also have the custom mode. It pretty much allows you to play any way you want, so any setting, any enemy, any ally, it's what you would expect in a fighting game. There's also the versus mode. This basically allows you to play against your real-life friends if they happen to also have Game Boy Advances and the game and the link cable. I'm sure there were some people who had incredible fun with this. However, it's actually kinda hard for the planets aligned to get the requirements to play this. To get the full experience, you would potentially need 4 Game Boys, 4 games, and a link cable. That would be for the full experience. I'm sure it was possible to find 2 Game Boys and 2 games, especially like if you were living in Japan or something, like in Tokyo, in a big city. But for somebody from a smaller town, this was like really difficult. And it's a big problem with many of the Game Boy Advance games that the multiplayer mode was for many people inaccessible, simply out of this reality. You have the one cartridge mode, as in many games, also this one has it, but it's kinda bland. One cartridge mode is basically only the city level, and everyone plays as Godzilla. As silly as it sounds, I remember having fun with this. I actually did this with real Game Boys and link cable. It's not as bad as it sounds. There's not much more I can talk about. The game has little replay value. There's nothing really to unlock. You won't get any new levels, no new monsters, no new settings. There's not that much to it, so I might just as well mention the Japanese version. The Japanese version of the game was released with some cosmetic changes. Godzilla is now black. Mechagodzilla is changed to resemble the third film version of Mechagodzilla. And Mothra is also a bit different to resemble the Tokyo SOS version of Mothra. But it's just a reskin, no gameplay change, nothing like that. This one actually has randomized enemies in the campaign, so there's a bit more variety to it, but the bonus scenarios are gone, so I can't say it's the best version. I guess it just goes to show how useless the bonus scenarios are. Nonetheless, I do miss them, because at least they are something. Okay, I would be lying if I skipped over this part, but I gotta mention the music. The one thing the game really has going for it, it's its soundtrack. It's completely original soundtrack that perfectly matches the pace and feel of the game. Some guy even did a complete remaster of this soundtrack, and it's a true banger. Check out the description. Anyway, I can't say much more about it, so here's the conclusion. The only thing about it, once you finish the game, it sort of leaves you wishing for something more. The endings are kinda cliffhanger-ish, so it's sort of hyping up a sequel that never happened. There's no unlockable content, nothing that gives the game extra playability. There's that Japanese version I mentioned, but you know, this is what you can do today with the internet. Back then, this wasn't possible for most of the people. I kinda wish there was more to it. But nonetheless, the short, good game is still better than a long, boring one. Really, it's a decent adaptation of Godzilla series. All the monsters are there, they look like they should, they feel like they should, they have the iconic attacks. There are some weird things, like Rodan uses this green gas to attack, like what, does he fart at the enemies or something? That's just weird. And Mothra has the weirdest one. She can attack by spamming a little baby Mothra that explodes. My god, what were they thinking here? This is crazy. I joked quite a lot about Konimatsu. You can say that it's a cheap way to use fan service to give the game some sex appeal, and yes, you can't refute this. That's exactly what it is. It works here because the story is basic, and having a cheap, over-sexualized costume gives you at least something to look forward to the next story segment, because there's not much more to it. It's actually kind of interesting now that I think about it. None of the other Godzilla films or games have any cutesy, fan-servicey girls around. At least, like, not in your face. Even though it's very common in Japanese media. So I suppose it's a big compliment to Godzilla series, how it can basically hold its own in its own original substance without having to rely on that. In fact, you know, that made me think. You will find women out there that are just gorgeous looking, extremely attractive, and you will often find these very good looking women are kinda shallow in their personality, kinda bland, don't have much more going for them. No personality, no intelligence, no sense of humor, nothing else besides their impressive looks. It's because those impressive looks give them a free ride with basically anything in life. It's easier for them to get a job, get a place to stay, anything really. They don't have to work as hard as other people. They don't have to work to improve themselves. And in the end, this sort of leaves them shallow, empty. And it's the same with this game, because it has its Godzilla license. It's basically given free ride. This Godzilla license, it's enough for it. It doesn't have to work hard for it to be a successful game. It already has what it has, and it just does a bare minimum of having the basic things you would expect in a fighting game, but not much more than that. So, yeah, that's that. So to conclude this analogy, what I'm trying to say is, just like you have less good-looking people out there with more wholesome personalities, there's definitely Game Boy Advance games out there that are much more wholesome than this Godzilla game. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're a sucker for the Godzilla license, this game is worth checking out. I can't deny that.